Hello you lovely lot, my name is Mike and welcome back to another video. I've been getting a lot of messages about the IELTS exam and the different parts of the IELTS exam. So today I wanted to talk about the writing exam and how to get the best possible mark in this exam. First of all, it makes sense to talk about what the IELTS writing exam actually is. There are two types of IELTS exam: academic and general. Today's class will help with both academic and general. I'll tell you specifically if one of these tips is going to help more with one of the two types of exams. However, in general, all of these tips will help equally with academic and general. For both of these exams, you have 1 hour to complete 2 tasks. Task 1 is always worth half the points of task 2, which means we should spend around 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. This is the same for both the general and the academic IELTS exam. In task 1 of the academic IELTS exam, you have to write an essay describing some information that you can see in either a chart, a map or a graph. You have to write at least 150 words and there is no upper word limit. In the general writing task 1, you have to respond to an email that is written to you. Normally this is about requesting information, complaining, inviting and a couple of other things. Like before, we have to write at least 150 words and there is no upper word limit. In task 2, for both general and academic IELTS, you have to write an essay talking about your opinion to a given task or question. In this case, the two tasks are very similar. You need to come up with an argument for and against the question that you have to answer. You have to write 250 words this time, and there is no upper word limit. Okay, now that's clear, let's get on to the tips. Tip number 1, plan your answer. So the first tip that I'm going to give you is to simply plan your answer. It's something that sounds very simple, but a lot of people don't do, including myself. You should spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes at the very start planning your answer, coming up with a structure and all the different points that you think about when you see the question. The reason for this is it will help you write quicker, it will help you structure your answers better, and it will help you avoid coming up with a better idea later on in the exam when you've already written everything. In general, the plan should look like: introduction. Paragraph 1 talks about your opinion without stating your opinion. Paragraph 2 is a counter-argument. Paragraph 3 will be similar to paragraph 1, it will expand a little bit on your opinion. Then the conclusion, where you answer the question. There can of course be more paragraphs if you want or if you need, but in general we want to avoid writing more than maybe 5 paragraphs in this question. So before answering the question, you need to think about, do you agree with the question or not? What's your opinion? Then you need to think about why somebody might disagree with what you think, so the other side of the argument. Final point, to reaffirm what you think, again without stating your opinion. And then the conclusion to wrap things up. So for example, with a question such as, violence in the playgrounds is increasing, parents should teach their children to hit back at bullies in order to defend themselves. To what extent do you agree with this statement? So we could maybe have the introduction. Paragraph 1, it's a bad idea because. Paragraph 2, here are the benefits to hitting back at bullies. Paragraph 3, more negatives. Conclusion, I disagree with the statement. Or something like that. This is of course a very quick example, it doesn't have to be like that, but there you go. But please plan your answers. Tip number 2, pay attention to the tone. This is something that can be very hard for a lot of people, but only really affects the general writing task. In task 1, you need to understand who you're writing the email to, why it's being written, and how you can write back. When thinking about that final question, how you can write back, we're talking about the level of formality. Do you have to write a formal, semi-formal or informal email? If you write informally, when you should have written formally, you'll lose a lot of marks because it's not appropriate. and the vocabulary you're showing isn't as high as it should be. If we're writing a letter of complaint, we want to write formally. If we're inviting a work colleague to something, semi-formally. And if we're responding to an email from a friend, informally. Again, this is a very quick example. Other than task 1 of the general writing task, everything you write has to be very formal. It can be tricky for university students because in university essays you have to write a hook. You have to be entertaining and funny. Not in the IELTS exam. In the IELTS exam you have to be boring, you have to be factual, and you have to be correct. If that means having the worst, most boring essay you've ever seen in your life, fine, perfect, because that's the tone we need. Task number 3, paraphrase the question. Okay, in my opinion, this is the most important part of the writing exams. You have to paraphrase the question. Now what that means exactly is that you have to rewrite the question to mean the same thing, but you have to use synonyms and just other words to describe it. This is very important in the academic task 1 and 2. It's also very important for the general writing task 2, but not so much task 1. So take this as an example from a real IELTS writing task. The following graph shows information about a Calgary bakery between the year 1970 and 2000. If we look at all of these words, what can actually be changed so that the sentence keeps the meaning? And what has to stay the same? We could change most of the words, but not all of them. I'll give you a minute so you can look at it and think it. Comment down below and let me know what you've written. So we could change the word graph, and we can find out what kind of graph or chart is being written about. Maybe it's a bar chart, a pie chart, a line graph, for example. Right now it's hard to know because we can't actually see the graph. We could change shows, maybe to represents. We can't change the words Calgary or bakery because those words contain too much information and we'd end up changing the meaning of what we're doing. We could also change the year as well. We still need to represent the same information, but we can do it in a different way. So we could maybe say over a 30-year period starting in 1970, for example. It still has the same meaning, it's just saying things in a very different way. So we could actually change most of the words in the question. And the same is true for every single IELTS style writing question. The reason for this is it's a part of what they're marking you on. Paraphrasing shows the examiner that you have a very high level of English, you're very confident, and you're very good. And of course, this will get you a lot of points if you do it effectively. Tip number 4, answer the question. Okay, so this sounds super obvious, but you'd be amazed how many students don't actually answer the question. They'll talk about it a lot in their answer. They'll analyse the things, they'll talk about their opinion, they'll talk about other sides of it, but they'll never actually state their opinion specifically, and they'll never specifically answer the question. The essay will look really good, it'll be really descriptive and interesting, but then they won't answer the question. They won't have that important sentence that says, this is a bad idea. I disagree with this statement. This can result in you losing a lot of points because, again, answering the question is one of the 4 points that you're marked on when doing the writing exam. It's as simple as, in the final paragraph, in the conclusion of both academic and general task 2, if you include a sentence that says, I disagree with this statement because, I agree with this statement because, the reason for this is because. If you have one sentence that specifically says, this is the answer to the question that I've been asked, you will gain a lot of points. If you leave this sentence out, you stand to lose a lot of points as well. Again, it doesn't have to be super long. 1 sentence, 10 words, and that could be the difference between a band 7 and a band 8. Tip number 5, more doesn't mean better. So a lot of people think this, and it's a very big misconception. More does not mean better. A lot of people might say, okay, I have to write 150, 200 words, so if I write 1,000 words, I'll get a band 9, right? No. It always surprises people when I tell them in task 1 you have to write at least 150 words, which means to get a band 9 you can write 150 words. There's no amount of words that we have to write to get a good score. The quality of your answer is nothing to do with the amounts, instead of the actual content that you write. If there was a minimum amount of words that you would have to write to get a band 9, that would be the minimum amount of words you'd have to write to get any band. If you've ever wondered this, then ask yourself this question. Which exam would score higher? A well-written essay that was 160 words long, or a poorly written essay that was 1,000 words long? Clearly the well-written essay would and should score higher, because it's better. You could have a terrible essay that was 1,000 words long, and it would always be a terrible essay. And you could have a really good essay that was 150 words long, and it would be a really good essay. The amount of words has nothing to do with it. Of course, essays can still be too short. The shorter the essay, the more that every single word that you write has to count. If you write 150 words, 150 of those words have to be correct and good. If you write 1,000 words, then some of those words don't have to be as good. Because of this, I always recommend my students write 50 words and no more above the minimum word limit. 200 words and 300 words is plenty to get your idea down, to use different grammar, different vocabulary, and to really hit that band 7, 8 and 9. There is no advantage to writing 7, 8, 900 word essays in the IELTS exam. Absolutely none. Okay, so for now, that's everything I wanted to talk about, and I hope you could go on to improve and get this band 7 or 8 or 9 that you're hoping to get. If you've got any more questions, please comment down below or send me a message on Instagram. I try to reply to every message and comment that I get. Thanks for watching. For now, that's everything. I'll see you lovely lot next time. Bye bye.